Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we're making pickled red onions. I've had these at a few places and I really liked them and I thought, I wonder if I could make these. And of course I could. So I set about looking for a recipe. I couldn't really find a good recipe for them. I looked in my Ball Blue book, which has all of the good canning recipes, and they didn't have a particular recipe for pickled red onions. So I kind of found about 3 pickled red onion recipes, and I cobbled them together, and then I adjusted them using a pickled onion recipe in my Ball Blue book, and voila, they're pretty good. Now, here's the thing. The onions that I used were pretty big onions. They were probably the size of a softball, each of them. So when I did my pickled red onions, I cut them into strips instead of into rings. If you're using smaller onions, you could cut them into rings, which would be, nice and probably prettier in the jar. The strips worked fine, though. And I thought, I was thinking, if you have them in strips, they'd be really easy to put on a hot dog. That's the driving force behind my cutting the onions into strips. Sorry, my life is beginning to revolve around hot dogs, chili dogs, anything like that. So,
what is this, a crossover episode?
I'm telling you, it probably is. It probably is. So, whatever pickled red onions you use, you can adjust and, do them different slicing. So, like I said, if you have small ones, you can cut them into rings. And if you have bigger ones, cut them into strips like I did. So here we go. You'll need 3 largemouth pint jars with lids and rings, 3 bay leaves, 3 teaspoons of peppercorns, and you can use either the whole black peppercorns or the multicolored peppercorns, 2 to 3 large red onions cut into strips, which is about 6 cups of strips, or smaller size red onions cut into rings, and the same thing, about 6 cups. You'll need 2 teaspoons of kosher or canning salt. Now, for the brine, you need 2 cups of water, 1 cup of cider vinegar, 1/3 cup of white sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of canning salt, and 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. The first thing you want to do is the onions, and we're going to salt the onions to draw some moisture out of them to prepare them for pickling. So cut your onions into 1/4-inch wide strips, long ways, and then halve those so that your strips are about 2 to 3 inches long. If you're doing rings, cut them in 1/4-inch thick rings and then kind of separate them, and then put those onion pieces into a large glass bowl. If you don't have a large glass bowl, plastic will do. Sprinkle them with 2 teaspoons of kosher salt or canning salt and toss them around to coat. And you're going to let those sit for 30 minutes and then rinse them well with cold water and drain well in a big colander. Now, while those are draining, I would do this and then, rinse them and let them drain. Now, what you're going to do is mix all of your brine ingredients in a 2-quart pot. You want to bring that up to a simmer and then let that simmer for 20 to 30 minutes. You're not going to put the onions in the brine. You're just going to let that brine simmer on its own because you want the flavors to blend. You want your sugar and your salt to dissolve, and you want to just allow that garlic to work its way through all that liquid. So now when you've got your onions nice and rinsed off and drained really well, you can prep your jars. So what you want to do is put 1 teaspoon of peppercorns and 1 bay leaf in each jar. Then, very carefully, fill your jars equally with your sliced onions. So you don't want to press them down. This is how I did it. I took a little set of tongs, a little set of kitchen tongs, and I picked up 1 load. I don't know how to say it. I picked up a load of onions.
A load?
And I just dropped it into the jar, and I kind of adjusted it a little bit to level them out. And I just did 1 in each jar, and I kept doing that over and over so they'd be kind of equally divided. And then I just made sure that they were loosely packed. You don't want to press them down, but you want to make sure that they're down in there about a half an inch from the top of the jar. You might have some onions that don't fit. Don't panic, because you can use them for something else. Just store them in the refrigerator. So once you have all your onion in there, and you want to have it, like I said, about a half inch from the top of the jar, you want to warm your lids up a little bit in some hot water. You don't want to boil them or anything. So what I usually do is just use hot tap water, put my lids in there just to get them warm, and then take your brine and just the same way you put the onions in, put a dipper of brine into each jar one at a time until you have it distributed between the 3 jars. And mine worked out almost perfectly. I had like the exact amount of brine I needed for 3 jars and the exact amount of onions. It was very, very lucky.
So you had just enough loads of onions and dippers of brine.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's what I did.
I'm making notes here so that when we write our cookbook, I'll have a full glossary of measurements
of my ridiculous cooking terms. I think that's what you should call the glossary. Mary Mac's ridiculous cooking terms. It'll be perfect.
We'll call it a nonsensory.
That's good. I like that. Oh my gosh. So once you get your brine in there, wipe the rims of your jars off, dry your lids, set them on top of the jar, and then put your ring on and tighten them up. Now, what you're going to do with these is let them cool and then store them in the refrigerator, because these aren't canned, okay? And don't use them for like a week or two. You have to wait a week or two before you use them because they're pickling in there, you know? So I did mine like 10 days ago, and I couldn't wait any longer because I just had to try them. So I tried them today, and they were so good. Like, I was eating them right out of the jar, which is probably why I have heartburn right now. Could be. I forgot about that. But they were really good. They were so good, and they were crunchy, and they were just like, I've had pickled red onions that were really, really sweet. And not that they weren't good, but I don't like that. I like it to be, I don't know, almost like a sweet and sour thing. So it's sour, but it's got a little bit of sweetness. You get a very nice garlic taste with them, not overpowering. The peppercorns do give it a little bit of a peppery flavor. So they were very tasty. And I took my jar to work so I could have them on my sandwich, okay? Now,
does your whole office smell like onions?
Probably, but I wouldn't know.
Just onions and garlic.
Maybe that's why nobody was coming in today. I'm going to eat them every day. But they were really good. I was trying to think, like, really the one thing I came up with was hot dogs, but but they were really good. They were so good. So, I don't know. I think you could use them wherever you use an onion. They'd probably be good in a salad too, like just, strips on top of a salad. But I really enjoyed them. I thought the flavor was very good. And like I said, it was just that, like, I didn't want them to be overly garlicky because they're an onion. And red onions tend to be pretty mild, so I didn't want to lose that good onion flavor. And I felt like this recipe has like the right amount of cider vinegar and the right amount of sugar. And they weren't even too salty, because sometimes some recipes call for you salting the onions down a lot and then letting them sit for as much as like 18 hours, to draw that moisture out. And I thought, I don't want to take all the onion out of the onions. I want them to, have that red onion flavor. And, so I think this is a really good recipe. I think you'll like it. And the one thing I especially do like about it is that you're storing them in the refrigerator. So they will stay crisper because they're in the refrigerator, and it's only 3 pints. So it's not like an overwhelming amount of jars in your refrigerator. And they would be really nice to give to someone, or, if you're having a party or something with sandwiches. I'm sorry.
You're just going to have loose pickled onions as an hors d'oeuvre.
When you have that big sandwich hot dog party that you're planning, whip out them pickled red onions. That's funny. I've just changed the name of it to Party Onions. Oh, that's terrific. So, oh, well, this has been the Pickled Red Onion Hour.
And the 3 pints is perfect because you can have one for the office, one for home, and one in your car for your commute.
Officer, was I speeding? I was just enjoying these pickled red onions.
The windows were down. We thought something was amiss.
As the officer faints from the smell of pickled red onions. Oh, gosh. Oh, my, that's... Oh, I hope you leave this in. I'm sorry. Who knew pickled red onions could be so silly and fun? But make sure you invite them to your next party.
Make sure you invite the pickled red onions to your next party.
I'm sure. Oh, God. Oh, my. And that's all I have to say about that.
Do you want me to do the plugs or do?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and do the plugs.
And make sure to check us out online on Facebook and Threads at Mary Mac Bakehouse, on Instagram at Mary Mac Bakehouse and Mary Mac Podcast, and on our website, marymacpodcast.com.
Thanks a lot for listening if you did. God bless you. And if you didn't, you missed a really good time.